And now, Rate That Album, Season 3, with Paul Muad'Dib and Joe Fremming. Two guys who know stuff.
Hi, and welcome back to Rate That Album, back and forth album review between myself, Joseph Fremming, and my good friend, Paul Muad'Dib. Paul, how are you doing?
Scumbag. 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 You're a scumbag.
Yeah. So this week, I decided to go to one of the worst Beatles solo albums, and frankly, after I finally heard it, one of the worst albums I've ever heard in my life, and that is John Lennon and Yoko Ono's Sometime in New York City, where John Lennon put an album out of half-baked political slogans that had that just felt completely vapid. Paul, what are your first thoughts on this album?
So I'm going to say something here. And I think you and I might have some disagreements on this overall. But this is why this album right here is honestly why the left always fucking loses. Like, you want a piece about why the left can never fucking win? This is it, because I agree with almost every single song on this album, what they're saying. This is a very political album, but the packaging and the way they do it is such a turnoff that it didn't do anything to move any fucking causes except piss people off. Minus maybe one song that actually did create a change. But outside of that, Joe, like, this is how not to do a political album.
Oh God, yes, yeah. I agree with you on that. I would say I agree with the basic premise of a lot of these songs. The songs themselves are so empty gestured and pompous at the same time. So this album comes about after Lennon and Ono moved to New York City, where they befriend people on the left, most notably the heads. I know they never liked to call themselves that, but they were the heads of the Youth International Party, the Yippies, Jerry Rubin and Abby Hoffman. Those two were excited to get a celebrity of Lennon's magnitude on their side, and so they would pal around with him, and then that would get them their names out there. And then on the Dick Cavett show, Lennon would be talking about the politics they're espousing. And Lennon wasn't an idiot, but I don't think he had only been in the United States by the time this album comes out, it's only been 2 years. So he really, I find it hard to believe he could understand and grasp where the political left was at that time. Especially with like a lot of these songs, like, I don't think he fully comprehended what these guys had gone through and where the political left was, because at this time the political left was they were exhausted. Mm-hmm. The political left really had the wind knocked out of their sails after the Democratic Convention in '68 in Chicago. Where basically the Chicago PD beat the shit out of all the peaceful protesters.
Yes,
an event that was so traumatizing. Hunter S. Thompson's ex-wife said that was one of the few times she saw him cry was when he came back from Chicago from the '68 convention.
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit, because you and I have both read Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail.
Yep.
Which really goes in to, like, if you watched Fear and Loathing Las Vegas or even read the book as well, like, that is a pinpoint of really where a lot of people thought the left was going to create this big thing. And I think that's when, at least in that generation, they realized that there's too many corporate and centrist Democrats that really didn't want the change that a lot of the other people were pushing. And maybe you'll just, I mean, I think you'd agree with me on that.
Exactly. It was the convention, the 68 convention is when Hubert Humphrey gets the nomination, who eventually loses to Nixon. But by that time, people were pretty exhausted with the political stuff. Chicago knocked the wind out of it. The trial of the Chicago 8, which was Hoffman and Rubin and other defendants, Black Panther. I mean, it was just like people were just, and the assassinations, people were pretty much just burnt the fuck out, which is understandable. Like, I am at that point again with politics. Which is burning me out. So Lennon comes along, and they're, this is Rubin and Hoffman, again, they're kind of a few years after this. Rubin will get more into the self-help scene. Abby Hoffman goes underground while he's facing a prison sentence for a cocaine deal. But this album comes out at the wrong time.
Wrong time.
Wrong time. People were exhausted. If it would have came out in 74, it might have held a little better if Lennon understood the politics, especially with Watergate, when people were getting invigorated into like, oh shit, there is a lot of corruption with these guys. It was both too early and too late, and the vapidness of this album does not help.
No, really.
So he comes along, he's this millionaire British rock star, espousing these slogans like power to the people and give peace a chance, and he's doing these bad ends. Like, Lennon comes along, and in my opinion's changed on Lennon over the years. I used to think that stuff was cool. Now I just find it obnoxious.
It was at the time. So yeah, I mean, you got to look at it for what it was. I mean, here's the thing that I think. When you're younger, like you and I, right? And I think in our time frame, we also didn't have the internet, right? We didn't get to see or learn about like what was going on per se as people did in the time. So when you and I think a lot of our friends were into the Beatles, were into all these things, we looked at, oh my gosh, this is what Lennon did this, and John Lennon did that, and Lennon pushed this, and we think it's so fucking cool. But what the difference between us and maybe our parents were, or people that were a little bit older than us, was they also remember all the bullshit that Lennon pulled. And that we are so then, as we start looking into this, as we start getting older, and now we have all this access to all this history, we go, oh shit, Lennon wasn't the amazing, awesome person that we thought he was.
He wasn't the revolutionary that I think his own legend, and I think Ono pushes this with like the documentaries that come out. Like, he was like this guy who came in, and he really wasn't. Like, a lot of people, I think, resented him.
Yes,
swooping in and being like this when he really had no idea what. I think he had an idea what he was talking about. I don't think he understood it fully. Like, if you've only been in a country for 2 years, you're not going to understand the political dynamics. Like, I would not be able to go into Canada and understand their politics in 2 years if they're going through a tumultuous time. That's just, it's a fool's errand. And he kind of does that. People are mad he's co-opting. And so he kind of screws himself over on that front. But then he also screws himself on another front in that he does this political stuff, and it gets under the craw of J. Edgar Hoover and Richard Nixon.
Yes.
So basically, with this album and these politics, Lennon screwed himself on both ends.
Yeah, I think people will forget that John Lennon was under watch by the FBI.
Yeah,
and was considered a public enemy by Richard Nixon.
Yep. As soon as he started, they saw him as a threat to mobilize the youth vote. And they just that's when his deportation proceedings happened, because he was busted in the UK for hash. So technically he shouldn't have been over here under certain laws at the time. I don't know if the laws still exist for people, but under that time, if you're been arrested for drug possession or drug use or whatever, you are not allowed admittance into the United States. Which, I mean, it's funny that they would do that, but they would let Keith Richards in the tour. Like, you know, it was a double standard that they were allowing some people in and then targeting.
Oh yeah,
but
and again,
Lennon was pissing off the wrong people, and he was pissing off a lot of people in the movement, I'd imagine.
Well, yeah, and you got to understand too. I think people don't understand. Like, they just think Watergate, and that's it with Nixon. They don't understand just how awful it really was.
Oh God, Kent State.
Yeah,
he sends the National Guard in to take care of protesters in Kent State, where they shoot and kill protest. Like, it was terrible,
fucking terrible. And I think people also don't understand just much like, I'll say it, much like we're learning with the Trump administration, where he really weaponized the Justice Department. Nixon, I mean, that's a cue right out of Nixon's page book. Nixon was anyone he considered a potential threat politically was utilizing his authority incorrectly to open up investigations and discredit, and in ways that are beyond that we haven't again seen in this level since recent.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. So amidst this, Lennon does Sometime in New York City.
Oh Christ!
A collection of songs. It's a double album, studio album, live album, which also has its own controversy, in which John Lennon and Yoko Ono rip off Frank Zappa, which we'll get into.
We'll get into that.
Because Zappa was pissed, I think, to the day he died at Lennon.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that.
So let's dig into this. We'll do track by track and talk about the empty gestures and sloganeering of John Lennon and Yoko Ono's Sometime in New York City. First track, we can't even really say. It's this song makes me hate John Lennon even more. This album convinced me that Lennon was the least talented Beatle, and in this half-baked. And there's an idea for a song here that it's "Woman is the Redacted of the World."
Yes. Woman is
There's
redacted.
An idea here for a song, especially in today's America, where Roe v. Wade has been overturned and women are now, in a sense, delegated to second-class citizens. There's an idea here, but it's a vapid song. It's a lot of it is just kind of stupid. Two, he's using a word he should not be using, and then he doubled down when questioned on it, saying the word has changed. You've only been in the United States for a few years, Paul, and he's saying the N-word.
Yeah.
Had changed to mean something. Like, what do you think of this song?
So, it's one of the stronger songs on the album. Here's the thing that I think also people forget about John Lennon. John Lennon and you hear a lot of it on this album, so I'm going to get it out of the way real fast. John Lennon was a huge fan of the 50s and early 60s style of rock and roll. And you can definitely hear it on this album. And it is somewhat dated, and he's not moving it forward. Well, I mean, and the thing is, he's not moving it forward. It's more of
it's a throwback. It sounds like his rock and roll album.
It's an imitation. It's not a movement forward. I'm not going to go as far as say that John Lennon was the least talented of the Beatles. I think in terms of this, right? John Lennon was codependent I mean, he was in love with Yoko Ono, but it was a codependency. And if you want to know more about that, there's things out there. But, well, I mean, I guess since we're talking about Lennon and not the Beatles, I mean, it's known that there was points where they were so fucked up on heroin and he was so attached to her that she would get him fucked up and have other women get into the bed so she could get a break from him. But Paul McCartney made the same mistake with Linda and Wings. Okay, so there's that. This is a phrase that Yoko Ono had made controversy with, I think in like 67, 68. This woman is the redacted of the world. And John ran with it as a song. To me, it's not vapid. I mean, it's one of the, I think, better songs on the album. I agree with what he's saying wholeheartedly. I mean, especially in today's day. I mean, some of it is here, but he could have worded it later. And like, you know.
Oh, well, he's also comparing women's plight to slavery.
Yes.
Which is just like, dude, fucking read a book.
Yeah, read a book. But I can look at and I'm just going to say, again, I'm playing devil's advocate here a little bit. I can look at it and go, I think I know what he was trying to say, and honestly, what Yoko was trying to say, and it's crazy that I can even put my head here. But in terms of, like, when I hear what the song, I think about slaves, right? Because obviously there's slave imagery in this. But I think about women being the slaves. So, I mean, yes, slaves had it bad, but women slaves had it even worse. And there's no denying that. I mean, the rapes, the sexual abuse that typically came with it, that, you know,
I don't think he's going there with that, Paul.
Right. This is what I'm saying.
That is like, the problem. He's basic, you know, like,
yeah.
That is like, again, he has an idea here, but it comes off so stupid. And it feels like a half an idea of a song. And then another problem with this album is how it's produced.
The production of the album is really bad. Like, you and I, that is a pet peeve I think both you and I really, really have, is the production of this album.
It's chaotically bad. And it's not chaotic in a good way. And this was a problem with a lot of Phil Spector shit post-60s, is that he is not a good producer. Mm-mm. He was a good producer, and then he went off the rails.
He got sucked up into his own ego. He started buying the old the Phil Spector wall of sound, and
you get that on here, this wall of sound, and it doesn't work.
No,
I mean, there's a reason why All Things Must Pass was just re-released with stripped of all Phil Spector's production.
Yep, I mean, let it be naked, right? Paul McCartney for a long time advocated to get the Phil Spector shit out of there.
Yeah, which I thought Let It Be Naked was worse. I like Let It Be, and I think Let It Be Naked was just another bad idea. And
it was a bad idea.
Beatle bad ideas.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing I think people, you know, yes, the Beatles did a lot of it, but it's because they were the first, not because they were the best.
Yeah.
There's a difference between being the first and being the best. You and I have talked about this numerous times throughout all these podcasts. A lot of times the people that are doing it the first aren't actually the best ones, and a lot of times they don't get credit for being the first. However, the Beatles did. I think what you realize in listening to any one of the Beatles solo album is really what's the key ingredient that's missing. George Martin on a lot of it, except with McCartney.
Here's the thing. Well, actually, I'll tell.
Go ahead.
Harrison put out the best solo album with All Things Must Pass. He didn't need those guys.
Yep.
This is like where you get in the debate. I don't want to get into a Beatles debate too much, but it's very plain that Lennon needed McCartney. I don't think McCartney needed Lennon. McCartney maybe needed Lennon for an edge, more of an edgy stuff to us.
There you go.
But
yes, that's it.
Lennon desperately needed somebody to bounce ideas off of, and he's bouncing them off of Yoko,
which is not working.
Not a musician. She's a very talented visual artist, conceptual artist. Music's just not her thing.
No. And the thing is,
and it's very apparent on her stuff on here because it's fucking terrible.
And here's the thing. People, I think, equate avant-garde incorrectly with
screaming incoherently.
yeah, or experimentation. There's a difference between avant-garde and experimentation, and then what you get here. It's very apparent in this album that Yoko was not musically savvy, and especially in the vocal department, which we're gonna get to real fucking quick.
Yeah.
But again, I get what the thing is. I get what Lennon was trying to say here. It's just not done right, and this is a problem that it goes through this entire album.
Yeah.
This is a running theme.
He needs a strong co-writer, and he never had one again after McCartney. And again, McCartney, his stuff sounds a lot better. But whatever, it doesn't really have as much edge. Again, Harrison and Ringo came out just fine. They put out perfectly fine solo albums that over the time I've enjoyed more than the Lennon McCartney shit. So
Yep. They just kind of flew under the radar, especially.
They just did their thing, man. They didn't care. They just put out albums.
I think Ringo's going to win as the last Beatle. So there you go.
Yeah, man. He's all positive and having a good time, being high all the time.
Yeah, right.
Whatever. So Woman is the redacted of the world. Introduces this song also tells you just how this thing's just going to nosedive.
And one thing I will say is that this song in particular, I've owned some like best of Lennon stuff, and this song has been on several of those. So, yeah. This is a song that they have pushed really, really hard. And again, I can say that musically, this is one of a couple songs on this album that I was like, okay, there's something here. But again, you got that Phil Spector, the production, and then I get what you're trying to say, Lennon, but you're not saying it in the right way.
A good way or a clever way. Like, that's another thing for a guy who's supposed to be the most clever of the Beatles. This album completely lacks cleverness.
Oh yeah, I don't think in my mind, I come from the fact of I don't think he wanted cleverness. I think this was a hammer. I think this was a mallet.
Yeah, he thought he was going to be Rage. In his mind, he's like, what would be Rage Against the Machine, but it turns out just to be fucking a turd in a pool.
Oh, there you go.
So next up, we got Sisters Oh Sisters, which I actually did not mind. This is like the one song I did not mind because it kind of reminded me of the 5, 6, 7, 8 band from Kill Bill.
Yep.
So I kind of like, you know what? For a piece of shit album like this, I am shocked that the one song I kind of liked was a Yoko song.
So they're definitely, I thought the same thing. I literally my mind went to the same place when I heard this song was the 5, 6, 7, 8. There definitely is a little bit of a Japanese sensibility to the music in this.
Yep. Which I like.
Which I honestly love Japanese music. Like, I am a big fan. There's several bands out there, and we'll get to them at some point on this podcast.
Based on our history of this podcast, there's no way in hell you listen to anything outside of white people music.
You, anyways. I absolutely very much enjoy several Japanese rock bands, and but it's also mixed with that 50s, 60s vibe with it, which I don't know meshed very well. The one thing I will say is that unfortunately Yoko singing, she's off key on a lot of these songs. And so, and because of the at least maybe it's because I'm older and my as you get older, the frequency changes in your ear. I had a very hard time understanding the lyrics of what she was singing. Until I looked up the lyrics. I was like, what the fuck is she saying? And again, I agree with what she's saying, but how you're doing it sucks. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I kind of like to just remind me of the 5, 6, 7, 8, so I'll just say it. That's the one I kind of liked. Up next, Attica State, which, holy shit, again, John Lennon taking the very top. And here's the thing, none of these songs age well because it's very much of the politics at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
don't
just
know
like
what Attica
really
is these
dated. It's
days.
like listening to like 80s punk when they're talking about singing about Reagan, like who fucking cares in 2022? You know, like it doesn't it's hard for newer generations to relate to the music when they have no idea who any of these people or events are. Attica State it's based off the infamous Attica prison riots.
Yep. People were killed.
People were killed. It was horrible. It was one of those big events of the 70s that really
separated the nation.
Separated the nation, but it also put in certain prison reforms.
Yep. There's a lot of people who did take the stance, though. I want to make it very clear, much like you're seeing today, of, well, if they hadn't fought, they wouldn't have been killed. And they weren't looking at what the living conditions were and why the riots.
People had no idea what living conditions in prisons were.
Yep.
Back then, Attica, San Quentin in California, these were just Rikers Island in New York. These were all just like real shitholes.
Mm.
It was bad. And so Lennon comes along with this, and it's not, again, like this song is almost forgettable to me because it's just a blast of fucking sound.
Yep.
Because of the production.
Yep. Yeah, the production doesn't do it very well.
It's hard to hear even the lyrics because it's so busy.
Yep, 100%. Completely agree with you on this one. Again, I agree knowing about Attica. I agree. And again, Attica was after my time, but it was something that we knew about because it was still being brought up a lot when we were growing up.
Yeah.
I agree, again, with what's being the sentiment of what the song is. I
agree with the idea.
Yeah, I agree with the idea, but again, I don't agree with 100% of the way you're wording it, and I don't agree.
And it doesn't feel sincere again.
No,
because he doesn't. It's hard to embrace these situations when you're not really. You haven't been here and seen the buildup, I guess, would be my argument. The rise that led to this in the country, like it'd be like coming into, be like Lennon flying and deciding to live in the United States the summer of 2020, right before the George Floyd thing, and then writing a song about the George Floyd protests.
Right. Yep.
Like,
and I will say
here, you don't understand what built to this. There's no way you can. You weren't here. Like,
I'll make the argument that it was different. Again, I've seen British people come over and like reporters and things like that because of the 24-hour news cycle, because we live in the age of all these cameras, because we live in the age of news and information or anything like that. I think it's easier for someone to come over and understand some, not all, but some of the inner politics as compared to what it was in 1970 when there was, especially under Nixon, move to really, block out the media, not let everything be known over the world of what kind of shit show is actually going on over here. And it was harder to understand the nuances of what it was versus what it is, right? Like,
a lot of news agencies back then really didn't know if anybody would even care about some of this stuff. Like it's a lot of news judgments based on your audience.
Yep, 100%.
And the BBC, what would they give a shit about Attica State? Like that would be a blurb, because people in the UK want to know what's going on in the UK. Like this thing happened in the United States. They're not going to get, because again, there's no 24-hour
news cycle.
So it's not like they're having to fill space. They're kind of compacting the news you need to know locally and nationally.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It was completely different than what it was.
Yeah.
So, all right. I think we said enough about Attica State.
I don't even remember Born in Prison, Paul.
That was another Yoko song.
Yeah, I know that, but I just have no memory of it.
The one thing, okay, again, I didn't mind it. Again, she's off key, but also the one thing that does stick out to my mind is the line of "mirror becomes a razor when it's broken. Look in the mirror and you see your shattered fate." The problem with it is I'm going to try and sing it in a way that they do it. Mirror becomes a razor when it's broken. Look in the mirror and see your shattered fate. It doesn't fit.
Oh yeah,
So,
this song. Yeah. Now I remember it, Paul. And it sounds like one of the those songs that the Manson girls would sing outside the prison.
Right.
During the Manson trial.
Honestly, you know what came to my mind when I heard this song? It was Patton Oswalt talking about the magician. When he's going like in the cackling in the darkness, like a half-remembered nightmare through a cracked mirror regret. I'm just saying, if this is what it is, I've seen it done better. That's what it reminded me of. Again, I understand what she's trying to say. Problem is that musically, it doesn't, like a stronger musician. And John Lennon should have, as a stronger musician, altered the chorus or altered the notes or altered the tempo in order to make the lyric fit. But it doesn't. So when she's singing it, it's like it's off. It's offbeat. It's off. That's all there is to it. I mean, there's no other ifs, ands, or buts. It's completely offbeat and sounds awkward and honestly terrible. Before that part, it's okay. Like, I didn't really mind it. Again, I agree with what they're saying, but this is not how you win any. Again, the packaging of what you're saying sucks.
Yeah. Yep. And that's one of the bigger problems too is everything just sounds like shit. Like it's a bad sounding record.
It is a terrible sounding record. 100%.
And you get that especially with the next track, New York City.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those tracks that's also been included on numerous Lennon greatest hits.
Yep.
The demo for this song is a lot better. This would have been a better song had he had a better producer.
Yes. And
this is one of those ones where, like, there's a good song in here.
Yes.
But it's just being assaulted by the wall of sound.
Yep. No, there is a good song in here. There really is. And, again, one of the big things it does suffer from is what we talked about in the Broadway, The Lamb Lays Down on Broadway. This reminds me of the song on there where they're referencing Lenny Bruce and Charles Desmond and, people that no one knows what they're talking about. So, yeah, I mean, no one gives a shit about your Elephant's Memory Band.
No.
And you ask most people today who was David Peel, they're not going to know who David Peel was.
No.
So
yeah, it's again like everything's so timely and of those few years these things happen that it really just there's no connection. I'd be hard pressed. I can't connect with it. I'd be hard pressed to see for anybody younger than us to even have any interest in any of this.
Yeah, I mean we're kind of on that cusp, right? I honestly, I don't have any connection to this song. I know, Long Tall Sally's a man. Okay, Long Tall, yeah, but again, or Tutti Frutti and no one gives a shit.
No, and so yeah, so then we go into Sunday Bloody Sunday, another song based off of the events in Northern Ireland.
Can I got to say something. If you would have came to me, Joe, and said, John Lennon sang a song and you two sang about the exact same thing, I would have said, well, the John Lennon version's better, right?
Yeah. No, it's not. This is one of those times you two did it better.
Yeah, YouTube did it better.
I'm not a YouTube fan. They have one album I like, and that's Pop. So I'm the outlier because most YouTube fans hate pop.
I enjoy pop. I, again, am burnt out. I'm burnt out. I worked, again, I think I've talked about this in previous podcasts, so I won't belabor the point, but I was in a band with a guy that wanted to basically be somewhat of a YouTube cover band. And when we wrote songs, I mean, we're all guilty of it. rewrite songs of what our influences were. So a lot of his songs were very U2 sounding, and it was fine. They were really, it was good. But at the same time, I was like really burnt out because it was like U2 24/7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and this is another song that is just there's really not much going on with it, and the production again just
well, and I want to say, so you're over here again, you're getting political. Okay, great. You come over here, you're singing songs about the U.S., but here's an outlier, and I could see. I'm playing devil's advocate here. I can see where people go, well, now you're singing about fucking English. Why are you worried about what's going on? Why the fuck are you worried about what's going on here? Again, I agree with what's being said here. I mean, John Lennon he made it more apparent as to what happened in his version than the U2 one.
Yeah.
U2 was a lot more innuendo, and, U2 is a lot more savvy when it comes to making their songs, mass appeal. This is far more angrier and fits more the tone of what Sunday Bloody Sunday was.
It's more in his wheelhouse. I think that's why this and the next song, Luck of the Irish, they're almost like a 1-2 punch. But he was really involved with Irish politics. Like, he donated to the IRA early on. And people have to remember the IRA early on is a little different from the IRA we know.
Yes, very different. Very, very different.
They were, it was a. I'm not saying they weren't violent when Lennon was donating to them, but I don't know enough about the IRA, but they got a lot more violent.
They got a lot more
into the 80s. Yeah, they were. But this was another thing that J. Edgar was tracking of Lennon as his contributions to the IRA.
Yep.
But Luck of the Irish, I think, works is like a better. I like Luck of the Irish because it feels like a folk song.
Yes.
But again, it's overproduced. If you listen to the demo, it works a lot better. It's a lot better song when you listen to Lennon's demo of it, which. I would say a lot of his songs are a lot better in the demo version than when he got in the studio, Phil Spector.
Oh, I will say, Love Is Real. I heard the demo of that. I love the demo version of that. But one of the things now we had to talk about here that ruins this song, at least for me, is Yoko on the chorus.
Yeah.
Them going, no, this should have all been John. I mean, and it's a great song, too. Like, when it happened, I honestly, when it started playing, I was like, oh, a reprieve, and then we get, if you could keep the voices like that, and I'm like, no.
Look, people, before you accuse us of hating Yoko Ono singing, you're 100% right.
well,
I hate her singing. I love her art.
Yes,
this is not we'll get into the live album where I'm fucking wanted to.
Again, Yoko is a good artist, and art, you know what? You have good sculptors, you have good painters, you have good musicians, you have good writers. They don't, just because someone is a good artist doesn't mean they're going to be a good musician or a good sculptor or a good architect or whatever, right? Like, you have that wheelhouse. And unfortunately, again, and I will accuse McCartney of the same thing with Linda. They both were so in love and wanted to be around these, the loves of their lives. They brought them into their music together when neither one of them, unfortunately, should have been involved. Not to say, and again, I
didn't see George and Ringo bringing their significant others into the studio.
Right. And again, there are married couple musicians out there that are fabulous. I mean, White Stripes, prime example. Granted, they were divorced, but my God, awesome duo. So it can be done. But
I'm glad you had that one example.
Well, you're welcome. I
thought you were going to bring up the Captain and Tennille.
hey, man, don't.
We'll keep us together.
So yeah, okay. I'll also bring. You may not like this, but Arcade Fire. I fucking love Arcade Fire. I don't care what anyone says. Awesome married duo. Awesome married couple in that band. So it can work, but both of them were in music before they got together. They weren't just thrown in their 20s or their 30s without a fucking life raft.
Yep. So yeah, Luck of the Irish. Again,
I love this song.
Bad decisions. Like this. Yeah. This album should have just been called "Bad Decision" by John Lennon.
And again, I really like. Again, when this played, I was so happy. I was like, oh, like my actually started to feel uplifted. I'm like, okay, we're getting somewhere. And then Yoko, and I was like, you son of a bitch. So yeah, this one was actually, I think, hurt the most because I thought it was going to be that drink of water, but I found out someone shit on it a minute, a couple of seconds in the
there's
drink.
A turd floating in your drink.
Yeah. There's a turd. There's a turd drinking it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right.
Next, we got John Sinclair. Again, if you don't know anything about the counterculture of the '60s, the political angle, which why would most people?
Mm-hmm.
This song would just have no idea. Now, John Sinclair was a White Panther. White Panthers were the offshoot of the Black Panthers.
Yep.
God, yeah. And so he basically got arrested for
10 for 2.
Giving 2 joints to 2 undercover cops.
Yep. They gave him 5 years of joint.
Yep. Most people didn't care then, and I can tell you what, Paul, I don't give a shit now.
Well, okay. I am going to say this to me, I was a member and at one of Normal, and at one point was in leadership in Normal. And if you don't know what Normal is, it's the national organization to reform marijuana laws. Matter of fact, for my 20th birthday, it was basically a Normal party. So for me, like, I learned about this song through the documentary Grass in 1999. And about this story. And I will say, for all this protest, I mean, John Sinclair, when asked about the song, the only thing he would say is, he said, it got me out of jail, so, thank you. Like, this song did make an impact. Like, John Sinclair looks at this song as the reason why his sentence got cut down. So you can say something came out of this album in some way, shape, or form. I love, I'm going to say, the cool, banjo, the slide guitar, things like that. This would be the best song on the album, except, and you know where I'm going with it, Joe. You know where I'm going with it.
Just surprise me, Paul. I have no idea.
There's a part where it sounds like the fucking record skips. And you go, oh my God. Like someone should have said to him, cut this fucking short. You got to set him free. And I'm not exaggerating. It is literally that amount of got tos. You know how I know? Because I just went off the lyrics for it. It's that many got tos.
Yeah.
Fucking Christ.
Yep. Yeah. Bad Decision, the album, Paul.
Bad Decision, the album. Other than that, it's a great song. It honestly is. It's a fun protest
song. I'm not going to say it's a great song.
It's a fun protest song to me. And again, for me, I look at what it means. I look at what it's saying. I look at what it did. So I have a little bit of a different affinity, I think, for it than you do. So
yeah, I don't give a fuck about John Sinclair.
Sure, absolutely. Sadly, I don't give a fuck about John Sinclair, the person. I give a fuck about that this happens, and not just to John Sinclair. And it still happens even as we're moving towards more legalization, or we were moving towards more legalization. We'll see.
The court will change that.
The court will change that.
All right.
Yeah.
So now we have Angela, which is obviously about Angela Davis. Sounds a lot like Endless Love to me.
Yep.
No, I'm going to say Diana Ross and Lionel Richie did it better. Like, this is a loving duet about... God damn it, Lennon. Like, what the...
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it doesn't feel like it's given Angela Davis a lot of respect, in my opinion. Again, that's my opinion. It just doesn't feel like it.
This is one where he was running out of steam on what to do with this.
Well, yeah, obviously he pads it out with a bunch of live shit. So
yeah, I mean, in terms of like the lyrics with this particular song,
yeah,
I mean, I get it. And again, I'm glad someone was doing it. I would look at it if I was Angela Davis and go, "That was your effort."
This is another one where Vapid comes to mind to me. Like, it doesn't feel sincere. I feel like he had this idea of Angela Davis and probably read an article on her, basically the 70s version of a Wikipedia search.
Yes.
He's like, yeah, I'll write a song about her. It's like, fuck you.
That's kind of what it was.
You don't know who this person is.
No, I mean, because the one thing I will say about like the live version, the demo version with John Sinclair, he knew who the judge was.
Yeah.
He sings about Judge Columbo. He doesn't really do a whole lot with this one to really point out other than what you would read in the paper about her. And there's not a whole lot of insight into it, right? It's great he wrote a song.
Insight, really.
There isn't an insight to it.
It's just basically listing.
Yeah. Let's compare this to Hurricane by Bob Dylan, right? Bob Dylan's Hurricane speaks about everything that went on, right? Like,
and a very specific part too, Dylan was hyper focused on a specific part of that story.
Yes. But
you gave like a background at the beginning, but it's mostly about the setup and the cops.
Right, but you could tell that it was a story. It was a thing.
It sounded inspired too, Paul.
What's that?
Dylan sounded inspired on that song. Lennon sounds like he's phoning it in.
That's what I'm saying. You could tell that with Hurricane, Bob Dylan was invested. He knew the story. He knew what was going on. He cared. You don't hear that one about this one with John Lennon and Angela Davis. You just don't, which is fucking disappointing.
Yeah, it's a bad song.
It's a bad song.
Now we're going to close out the studio side, Paul, with We're All Water.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go through this real quick, Joe, because
please.
There's not much. We're gonna do the comparisons here because the whole thing is there's not much difference between Chairman Mao and Richard Nixon, which I'll give them. Marilyn Manson, Lenny Bruce, what? White House and Hall of People. Raquel Welch and Jerry Rubin. Ooh.
Again, like
Eldridge Cleaver and Queen of England. Manson and the Pope. Rockefeller and you. Okay, Mr. Millionaire who spent all his money on heroin. So again, I get what you're trying to say, but you fucked it up. And God, the vocals on it are just atrocious.
Yeah, it's bad. It's another.
And this was a Yoko written song, by the way.
Yeah, it clocks in at 7 minutes. And
for
it just doesn't fucking end.
It doesn't.
No matter how much you want it to.
Yeah. So just so you know, Women is the Redacted, Sisters of Sisters, Attica, Born in a Prison, New York, were side A of record 1.
We don't need to go.
I do, because God damn it, we're getting to the live shit.
Well, I want to know what pointing out side A and B of the record is proving.
Because we're getting to the live, and I want to point out that on side B, on record B, side A, there's only 2 fucking songs.
Yeah, well, that's because it clocks in at almost a half hour.
And they're okay. All right. Let's get to the live thing because this was rough.
Okay, yeah. So the first part of the live album is from '69 with Harrison and Eric Clapton and a bunch of other chuckleheads.
Yep. The Elephant Memory Band, which, by the way, John Lennon was a dick for giving everyone different names and not really accrediting them properly.
Yeah, so we got Cold Turkey, which is it's extended and it doesn't sound good, and it's whatever.
Well, I want to bring up real quick. You had Clapton, you had Delaney and Bonnie, you had Jim Gordon, George Harrison, Nicky Hopkins, Bobby Keys, Keith Moon, Billy Preston, Glass Foreman, and Alan White. You had a powerhouse.
There's no reason why these two songs suck, but
exactly.
We'll get into why the second song sucks, but there's no reason why Cold Turkey should have sucked, but
There's no reason why well, because he wasn't actually going through withdrawal, unless he was.
Probably was. I don't know.
Yeah, god damn. That's what I was thinking when I heard this. Like, Cold Turkey live? Really? You're going to go through withdrawals live on stage? Okay. All right, John. Yeah. All right. Power to you.
Yeah. So the next song is Don't Worry, Kyoko. I believe was Yoko's daughter?
I think it was daughter, yeah.
Daughter, yeah. And this is 16 minutes of Yoko screaming.
Screaming. Like, there's, again, difference between avant-garde and garbage.
This is hot garbage.
This is hot. This is 16 minutes of her just screaming, don't worry, over and over and over and over. How Clapton, Preston, Harrison, fucking Alan White, Keith Moon stood for this shit, I don't understand.
I think they're all on heroin.
Holy fuck.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. It's 16 minutes of
to the Beatles
noodling on the musician's part and Yoko screaming, and oh god, that was 16 minutes of just unbearable. Like, I'm surprised I made it through it, honestly. I made it through it. I gave it one listen. I gave it one listen. One listen, because that's all it deserved.
I gave all the live stuff, well, except for 2 songs, multiple listens. This was one I did not. I listened to it once. That was enough. I want to point out again that we had Clapton, Lennon, and Harrison on the same stage together, and these are the 2 songs that we got.
Yeah.
That is a fucking travesty. That is a fucking travesty.
Yeah. Well, fuck Eric Clapton, so.
Well, Eric Clapton's a douche.
All right, so now we'll get to side 4. This is another live, but this is from 71.
Yep.
The previous one was from 69, so Lennon's still in the Beatles, Harrison and all that. Side 4 is 71. And this is with Elephant's Memory and Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention.
Yes, it is.
The sound is a lot better.
Yes.
I will give it that. That is all I'm going to give it. There's like some okay parts, but so let's get it. The one part, Well, Baby, Please Don't Go, a cover. It was a welcome reprieve from Don't Worry, Kyoko.
Oh, yeah. No, that was a great way to start.
It sounded all right, and like the production sounds a lot better.
Yep.
Probably because you have somebody who knows what he's doing with fucking Frank Zappa.
Right.
Yeah, that was all right. Jam Rag, which is so let's talk about Jam Rag, Paul. You know more about Zappa than I do, but this was they decided to put out their own version, but since Lennon put this out first, him and Yoko get songwriting credits for King Kong.
So it goes even beyond that a little bit. So what happened was there was an agreement between the two, and other bands have done this, by the way, where they've done different versions and they're allowed each other to do things.
Yeah, but at least they gave the credit where credit was due.
Right. But I mean, you like I've seen it where bands have done the same song, but they're 2 different interpretations, right? And never been a problem. I mean, something obviously, but here's the thing with this one was that there was an agreement between John and Zappa that John was going to put this on his thing and that Lennon was going to do his version. Whether it was this is where it gets a little murky. You ask, depending on who you ask and who's involved, but the thought by Zappa was that John and Yoko went out of their way to then prevent it. Like, no, that's our song. And I don't know if there was a conversation between them or what happened there. But when Zappa went to re-record it, because it is Zappa's song, by the way, it's a song called King Kong, and it was Zappa's song. When he went to go record it, he was basically in junction with, no, you can't do that.
Yeah. His version wasn't released until what?
1992.
Yeah, 92. So
92. Yeah. Yep. So like there was some massive animosity. They never here's the interesting thing about it. Zappa was a very proud and known conservative, which when you listen to Zappa, when you know about Zappa, that would probably doesn't compute, because in Zappa's mind, Zappa was more of what is now a libertarian than what it was. And Zappa had a lot of arguments with conservatives at the time because they really wanted to stifle free speech and do all these things. And he really, I think if Zappa was around now, he'd be absolutely appalled by what the Republican Party has become. Both parties. I mean, politically, Zappa was very interesting. So the fact that even John and Zappa were on the same stage together, and that Zappa put up with John and Yoko, because Zappa in an interview was asked about this, and he said, yeah, this guy introduced me to John Lennon, was like, hey, it's the John Lennon, like I'm supposed to be impressed. And I was like, hey, what's up? What are you doing here? Like, why are we hanging out? And that's how this whole thing started. But yeah, he's like, I don't know if they thought I was supposed to be like in awe of John Lennon. And he's like, I really wasn't, knowing John and things like that. So yeah. Yep. So there you go. That's the story there.
Yep. Yeah. So that song got stolen. And then we have Scumbag, which is, like
Scumbag.
Yeah,
Scumbag.
just screaming Scumbag. Zappa tries to save it, man. Like, you can just...
Oh, he is.
He's not hiding his annoyance.
No, not at all.
He starts talking to the audience.
Yep, he starts trying to get the audience, because I think he knows that they're losing the audience. And
well, he's got this idiot with his idiot wife making idiot noises. Of course, he's going to try to save it. Like, it was his gig.
Yeah, and I want to go back just a second to Jam Band, because there was lyrics and things like that, but for whatever reason, John and Yoko just had Yoko screeching over it. And you can actually hear during that song, if you listen to the live version, of Zappa trying to kind of go, okay, we're going to take turns conducting. I'm going to conduct now. And they kind of end the song early. Like when Zappa describes the song, and when you hear the King Kong version, it was a full-on completed song. There was a verse, there was a chorus. It wasn't what you got there, and it was just John and Yoko. For all I can really think of is that they were fucked out of their mind on drugs, and that also was a massive annoyance to Zappa. Zappa was really anti-drug. So again, I'm really surprised that he was even on stage with them. Like, how this happened, I don't know. I thought it'd be amazing, and I'm just sad. And yeah, you hear Zappa trying to do it, and he's such a great guitarist.
Well, and then he's got a tight band. Like, Zappa he was very particular.
He was. People forget that he was also a conductor. He knew music inside and out.
Yeah.
And really looked down on a lot of like rockers and things like that only knew one particular style of music. And really actually looked down on a lot of people about like, why are we not having world music introduced in the US? Like, that was a big thing for him.
Yeah. Yeah, so then you get with Scumbag, you hear him pretty annoyed, and it's a bad situation.
Very bad situation.
I'm not the biggest Zappa fan, but I feel bad for him here. Like, this is his gig.
Yep.
And the Lennons just show up and just fucking.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, fuck it
imagine
up.
being in the audience seeing this, Paul. Like, you and I would probably have been pissed off.
I would have been furious. I would have been
Why?
absolutely
Because
furious.
at first you're gonna be excited, like, "Oh shit, John Lennon!"
Yeah.
And
I
then,
would have
like,
lost shit.
John Lennon's just screaming "scumbag" over and over again.
Yeah, I would have been like, I would have been like John Lennon and Zappa. Holy fuck! John Lennon and the Mothers of Invention. Awesome. Oh shit, we got Yoko here. This could go badly.
And it does.
And it does. Because we get
yeah. Ooh, God.
Auga.
8-minute closing track, and
You could just tell
it just fizzles to me.
It does.
It fizzles out.
It like the last how many minutes of it is just kind of static and things like that. And I just in my head pictured Zappa like just shutting it down.
Yeah, that's probably what happened.
I think
What
so.
I imagine what happened, and then I don't think Lennon was self-aware enough because of his ego to realize, because I hear it on this, and I'm not a Zappa fan, but I know enough about Zappa that this feels like he's just like, fuck it, we're done.
Yeah, well, because this was the encore set, first of all. But I just think it was just, I think Zappa was like, no way. No. I mean, because really all it is for the last, like, 3 minutes of it is just guitar feedback. That's it. And it's just fucking Yoko wailing. I mean, literally, that's all she's doing is wailing. There's no real lyrics. There's no real anything. It's just her making noise. Yeah,
it's bad. It's bad. Everything about this album's pretty bad, Paul.
Yeah, it's bad.
We made it to the end here, and
fuck, I'm so glad I don't have to listen to this
if it sounds like we didn't like it, that's because we didn't.
No. Now,
Paul's more forgiving about it than I am.
Yes.
But that's fine. Part of me is just so disgusted by everything about this album because it just, again, it feels like such an empty gesture politically. He fucks over Frank Zappa.
Yep.
Like, there's not a whole lot of redeeming qualities. I guess getting John Sinclair out of prison, but I mean, again, I don't give a fuck about John Sinclair, so like, what do I? You know what I mean? Like, I don't care.
It was more so bringing attention to the ridiculousness of the marijuana penalties at the time.
Drug laws. Didn't really change the drug laws. It just got him out. The drug laws still.
Yes, unfortunately, drug laws. Well, yeah, no. I mean, you can say that he made a difference for white drug offenders, but not black drug offenders. Let's say that right there, because that's pretty much what happened. White drug offenders suddenly like, oh, okay, but then when it came to black drug offenders, interestingly enough, you don't have many songs about them by John Lennon, do you?
No, we get the Wikipedia entry on Angela Davis.
Yeah, that's exactly what we get. I am a little bit more forgiving about it because, again, I do feel that yes, it's vapid, yes, it's poorly produced, but I do get the sense that I can see what John was trying to do, but he never got near sticking the landing like he did with that hard R on Women is the Redacted of the World. And I think now, like, that song in particular, God, it would have been the most amazing, I think, probably a really good protest song had it been better written. Because, I think honestly right now with like the Supreme Court cases and things like that, it would be getting a lot more attention, a lot more airplay.
Yeah, but it's such a boneheaded way of putting it out there that it's just... Oh, yeah. It's a footnote in his history, but it's again, that was the one song where that's the I see where he's going, and if he would have put a little more time and effort into it, I think but I think also he's trying to be a provocateur.
Well, and I think
was kind of again, it's just like you see this shit with Lennon and like the yippies and stuff. You know who was paying attention with these the theater of politics, Paul? during this time in the Nixon administration was Roger Stone.
Yeah, Roger Stone.
If you think about it, he took this and the yippies and all that, and he flipped it into a conservative bent.
Yes, he did. 100%. Roger Stone, you nailed it, sir. Now, I will say that with it, I don't know if John was necessarily being a provocateur. I mean, he was being a provocateur, but
the N word pretty liberal.
However, it was originally Yoko, and I think he was so enamored with her that he wasn't going to change the statement. Even I'm sure tons of people said to him, "Don't do this."
I doubt anybody. I think he was surrounded by yes people, Paul.
I I'm sure there was, but I do think there's people who's like, John, it's not what it means over here. Like, it's not.
I honestly don't think. Okay. I don't think anybody told John Lennon in 1971 no.
I don't know. I mean, I do. Maybe. I guess not. I just think someone had to say to him, probably not the best.
Who is this mystical person, Paul, who's telling John Lennon no? I'd like to know this.
I got it. I mean, maybe it's because I'm thinking of,
Phil
modern
Spector, the guy who shot and killed his wife.
Maybe I'm thinking modern. Maybe I'm taking modern sensibility into it a little too much. I would just think that, because if you try to do it today, like, people would be like, "No, John."
Yeah, but this is 71, man. Like, a lot of those counterculture people were throwing around the N-word.
Yeah,
white counterculture people were throwing around the N-word. If you read Jerry Rubin's "Do It," he uses the N-word a lot.
Good point. It was the time, yeah. A lot of, I mean, because there was a little bit more inclusion there with the Black Panthers in terms of
they felt like they could, because of their connection with the Panthers. I think a lot of left wing activists felt comfortable using that word, which they really shouldn't have. Yeah, I'm surprised the Black Panther. If anybody's going to say no, I'm surprised it wasn't the Black Panther. Looking at John Lennon like, don't use that word.
Yeah, don't do this, dude. Yeah,
I don't think he's letting Black Panthers in the studio with him.
Oh, probably not. I think he would have been inoculated from that. I don't know. I just think that, again, he probably could have done it better, but it never was going to happen because it was a Yoko. I guess the point I'm trying to make, it was a Yoko statement. So it was
a Yoko song.
It doesn't matter if it's a Yoko song. I think he was so enamored with Yoko, and he was going to keep it because it's what Yoko said. Do you know what I'm trying to say there?
It doesn't excuse it, though.
No, I'm not trying to make an excuse for it. I'm just saying I don't think the song ever had a chance because it was what Yoko said, and nothing was going to change John Lennon's mind on
the word of God.
Right. That's what I'm trying.
Toxic codependency is a hell of a thing.
Bingo. Thank you. You said what I was trying to get out. So apparently I'm the John Lennon of this podcast.
You're just mumbling your way through it.
Until you go, oh, I get what you're trying to say, Captain Mumbles.
Captain Mumbles. Oh, yeah. So that was our foray into solo Beatles music, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you recommend?
No. Honestly, he's a Madonna. I wouldn't recommend any real Lennon album. He's get the solo album. Get the greatest hits, or as you told me about the anthology.
Yeah, so I'll bring that up. The Lennon Anthology, it's out of print now, but you can still get it pretty cheap if you go I know you don't like to shop on Amazon, but other people do.
I shop on Amazon. I'm not.
You said gross when I said it was available.
Oh, I said it was gross because it was $30 on Amazon.
Yeah, but it's like a 4 or 5 disc set, and it says his demos. It says demos from the first solo album all the way up until.
I didn't realize it was
posthumous Milk and Honey.
Yeah,
so it has really good versions of his solo stuff, and I think you hear that he was a really good songwriter, and he was one of those examples. Like when I bought that set when we were in high school, and then I compared it to his studio stuff, especially with Imagine and Plastic Ono Band and Walls and Bridges and shit like that. Like his demo sounded a lot better than the end production, and I think that's, again, he did not have a strong producer, even though he had Phil Spector. Phil Spector was off the rails at this point.
100%.
Yeah, he needed like somebody like George Martin to at least kind of like warm things up, and like maybe we shouldn't put strings here, or maybe we shouldn't do that there.
Maybe we shouldn't drop the N-Rod over here.
Yeah. It's like, I think he, like, when he was left to his own devices, he was just kind of throwing everything to the wall and to see what stuck. Where
yes,
McCartney was more, he knew what would kind of work. He would flesh things out. If you've seen the Get Back documentary, you see him, he's able to flesh out ideas, and then he instinctively knows what will work and what won't. He's one of those guys who's just musically, that's just how he is. He'll figure stuff out. Harrison's the same way. Harrison would. Lennon, I think, wasn't as comfortable with that, and maybe wanted to be a little more different or something, but like it just really didn't work with his solo career. Again, he has songs that are good. I would recommend the demos in almost all cases, maybe except for like, Imagine, because that worked.
Yes,
but yeah, his home demos were always in outtakes and shit where people were just like more loose. It was a lot more interesting.
So I'm going to ask, I'm going to assume I already know the answer to this, but it's not digital. I can't get that anthology, a digital version.
I've never seen it streaming.
Okay. So
I think Spotify, I don't know. I think they pulled it. I don't know. You might be able to find it here and there. You might be able to find it on YouTube Music, like a rip uploaded on there of it.
Okay.
So like we did with the Bee Gees.
God damn it. I'm going to bring up this thing, and then I want to talk about something else at the very end of the podcast. But I want to point out that a lot of people have said over the years that, man, drugs really helped music. Like, oh man, these musicians, people always kind of, played this idea that drugs are what made these musicians. Look, John was out of his tits, okay? John was out of his fucking tits. People don't realize that when he left the Beatles, he had no money because he had spent it all on heroin, especially.
And bad investments. He didn't blow millions on heroin. He wasn't shooting it. He was snorting it. He blew it all on bad investments. And there's a whole history of that. But yeah, when he left the Beatles, he was broke. Yoko actually is a brilliant businesswoman and got his money back for him.
Yep. But even when he was broke and everything, he was still into that. So, I just want to point out that the drugs really did fuck with John. Now, when you look at all these artists that, did all these drugs, right? It wasn't just people in a fucking garage like what you had here, essentially, fucking drugged out of their mind, making a bunch of shit and putting it out there. Typically, you had people around them that could rein them in and could do things. Yes, was there maybe some creative process to doing the drugs? Sure, I'll give you that. I'm a big proponent of drugs. I don't do them anymore, but I did, and I'm happy I did. But the point is that you ever want to bring up the fact of, oh man, drugs are the reason why we get these great albums? Fucking listen to this thing and then come talk to me.
Yeah. Sometimes drugs don't help.
Yeah,
they certainly helped Alice in Chains with Dirt, and I'm sure, LSD certainly put a shine on Sgt. Pepper's and Magical Mystery Tour. But then you have the dark side where heroin and coke gave us
Warrant.
Sometime in New York City.
It's sometime in New York City. They gave us Warrant and Wet and Ringer.
Yeah. They gave us hair metal.
It gave us hair metal, especially coke. Coke gives a lot of hair metal, people. It's not always a good thing.
Gives a lot of bad disco. Now, I like disco, but there's a lot of bad disco out there. Thanks to cocaine.
Amanda Lear. All right. So I think we're both a no on the recommendation, Joe. You're a big no on this?
Yeah, I would stay away from this. It's not even interesting as a curio into his solo career. It's just bad.
So
it's not even fun bad. Like Amanda Lear is just bad.
Oh, so bad. Yeah, no. And I will say, though, you think this is worse than Pat Boone. I do not.
This was way worse than Pat Boone.
I
had such a good time with Pat Boone, but I think that's partially because I was torturing the fuck out of you with that one. One has a little more of a shine to me.
This one, you tortured yourself torturing me. And I think you came out of this hating it more than I did.
Oh, God, this was bad.
I mean, it's bad. Don't get me wrong. I hate it, but not as bad as Pat Boone. Like, Pat Boone gave me a complex. Joe, what's going on at the Showdown?
We just released our MASH review, and then we'll be doing Sports Month. So
yay!
Check it out.
So we're caught up, finally. The first 9 episodes, as you know, released. The 10th episode is actually out on SoundCloud, and I believe it's up on the Showdown right now as we're recording, so there you go. Yes, it is up on the Showdown. Joe, do you want to ask me what we're doing next week?
No, not really, but what are we doing next week, Paul?
Well, I alluded to this to you already. We know I have a love of Frank Zappa.
And we just did Frank Zappa.
Frank Zappa was on this album.
Yeah.
We're going to do a proper Frank Zappa album.
I thought that was the height of his career, Paul. He was on a John Lennon solo.
You don't get any famouser than that. We are going to do what I think and has been considered over time to be probably his most competent, successful, and accessible album.
Weasels Rip My Flesh?
Weasel, though. We are doing Joe's Garage, Act 1, 2, and 3.
All right. I like the song Joe's Garage.
This is a concept album that was actually released in 2 parts. And now you can get it in a 3-disc set. You can get it all streaming.
Discs? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, at the time it was released.
Okay, boomer.
Yeah, okay, boomer. Even when it was records back then, even.
Back in my day, we had compact discs.
And 8-track players and compact cassettes.
You had to rewind video cassettes that you rented at the video store.
Or they gave you a late fee. Do you remember that when the fucking video update, if you didn't rewind, they'd give you a fucking late fee? Fucking pricks. So yeah, we are gonna do. It's a long album, but I think if anything, if there's any Zappa you're going to get and understand, it's gonna be this one. In terms of the audience, not you, Joe, because I think a lot of the audience isn't familiar with Zappa, and I think that this is a really good insert into it. And as we get into it, there's also considered by many to be his best solo on this album as well. So as good as Frank Zappa is really known for his guitar work. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're going to do. Are you excited?
Yeah, I don't know. Your pick, man, not mine. Don't drag me into this.
I'm excited for you. I want to see.
I own Joe's Garage.
So. Okay, you do. Okay, perfect. Okay, so Joe, do you want to take us out?
This has been Rate That Album with Paul Muad'Dib and Joe Fremming. Thank you for listening.